the 2-0. Turned in the air to right field. Going back of Gonzalez out the wall. Goodbye. 3-0 in game 5.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 4 of M&A Sports Talk. I'm Matthew Kaufman. That's Aiden Roman. We got a lot to talk about today regarding getting ready for the 2023 MLB baseball season to get underway with spring training just around the corners. Pitchers to catchers reported in less than a month. We got the decision with what's going to happen with the Yankee outfield and who's going to be where. Of course, we got talks of the New York Knicks later on tonight, and we got the 2023 NFL playoffs coming to a near end with the NFC and AFC championship game this Sunday. 49ers and the Eagles, and of course the Bengals and the Chiefs. So we'll get to all that in just a little bit, but we're going to start with baseball. And Aiden, we're going to start with the Yankees. Obviously, it's right around baseball, right around the corner again. And for this Yankee team, it's been a question of who's going to be your everyday left fielder, who's going to really be in the outfield. I mean, you have the situation now with Judge officially re-signing a few months ago, so he'll be your right fielder presumably all season. You have Harrison Bader in center field. So who is that left fielder for the Yankees? We saw Brian Cashman mention Aaron Hicks, if not traded by that time. So do you agree with this situation with Aaron Hicks being in left field, or do you want to see somebody else out there?
I'm going to say I really have to disagree with Cashman here. Even if Hicks does not get traded by the start of the season, I think when the Yankees are playing home, you get Giancarlo Stanton some reps out there. So I think it'd really be Stanton, because you've seen the stats don't lie. When Stanton plays the field, he does 10 times better than when he's just off the edge, because, you know, your body's moving, everything's hot, everything's going. But obviously Stanton can't play away games, so I think you'll have Stanton and Oswaldo Cabrera alternating nights. I don't think, unless the injury happens, I don't see Hicks getting a spot.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned the whole thing with Giancarlo Stanton, and when he's in the field, he's much better as a player offensively. And that really goes for a lot of things, because maybe you bat in the first inning and you come off a bad inning and you strike out, right? You go back in the field, you totally forget about it because now you're focused on being in the field. So your next at bat, you totally forgot what happened. Obviously, you still know you struck out, but you're not thinking about it. When you're in the dugout as a DH, you strike out and you just go right back to the bench. So it is definitely a thing that was talked about with Aaron Boone. I remember last season talking about Aaron Boone, mentioned that a few times. So it'll be interesting to see what Aaron Boone decides to do. But at the same time, you know, you've been back and forth with the Brian Reynolds, which we talked about a couple of episodes ago. That doesn't seem like it's going to happen for the Yankees. Now you have a guy who, in Oswaldo Cabrera, we were just talking about it before we started tonight. This is a guy in Oswaldo Cabrera who could really play all over the field. He could play third, he could play short, he could play first, he could play left, he could play right. So he's going to be one of those guys that I would see in multiple positions. But as of right now, when Aaron Hicks is fully healthy and he has a good season, he is a great defender. And we've seen it in times. We've seen it at times with Aaron Hicks. Could be a really good defender. Last year, obviously, just an all-out struggle indeed for Aaron Hicks at the batter's box, of course, and defensively dropping balls that really shouldn't have been dropped or making plays that should not have been made. So it is definitely going to be an interesting decision, and I think Aaron Boone's going to look at it a little more during the spring, see what spring training comes out of it, because this is a team that, for the Yankees, you know, they're built on their outfield, and when you got a Gold Glover in center field in Harrison Bader, you got what should have been a Gold Glover in right field with Aaron Judge. I mean, having Aaron Hicks out there when healthy and at his best, I think it is a great defensive glove in the outfield. And by putting Stanton out there as well, and I just mentioned this with injury, you know, it's an injury concern with Giancarlo Stanton because he gets injured a lot more than the other players. So putting Stanton out there could definitely put the Yankees at risk of losing him for a little bit of the season. So that's why I see where Cashman wants to go with putting Aaron Hicks out there. But at the same time, I feel like spring training is definitely going to be a key part of that, and see what the final decision is come opening day on April 1st against the Giants.
Now, I hear you brought up spring training. Now, a little happy news for Yankee fans. Brian Cashman and the Yankees coach, Aaron Boone, agreed that Anthony Volpe will be seeing a lot of reps during spring training. Um, Hopefully, if it all pans out well, he will be the starting shortstop. But as of right now, Cashman still has his eyes set on leaving Isaiah kind of Falefa there. Now, it's not the news the Yankee fans want to hear when you want to have this young core in the infield. Maybe throw Peraza in there if the Liberatores trade does not happen. You have not Isaiah coming off the bench, an amazing bat. I'm not going to knock him. Just a little too many errors last season, but offensively, he had one of the highest batting averages for the Yankees. Just an amazing hitter. But when you have a young, amazing caliber shortstop like Anthony Volpe, who everybody says he's ready, you give him some time, and maybe he could pan out to be better than Oswaldo, Peraza, and right now, Matt, he is the number one shortstop prospect in the league right now.
Yeah, and spring training, and that's obviously the reason for spring training. I mean, we know basketball does it with preseason, the NFL does it with preseason, baseball does it with spring training. So it's an opportunity for the younger guys. As we mentioned, Anthony Volpe, guys like Jason Dominguez, Trey Ambergy, who's down there as well in the minor leagues. But it's an opportunity for those young guys to show what they can do. And if a situation where a player were to get hurt or any other kind of situation that they're the guy to be called up. Maybe they have a doubleheader. We've seen Estevan Florial be called up a bunch of times for the Yankees in recent years. So I definitely think it's an opportunity for the younger guys to show their abilities and what they can do on and off the field. So that'll definitely be an interesting thing as well. And for the Yankees, of course, I mean, for any team, really, it's an opportunity to see what your team does as an organization. How do your veterans react or come together with the younger guys? Are they teaching the younger guys? What's the relationship in the locker room with those younger guys compared to the veterans in the league? So that's definitely always questions up in the air for that. But I love watching spring training baseball, especially because you don't see the same faces every day. When you watch regular season, you'll see the same Aaron Judge, Anthony Rizzo, Garrett Cole. You hear all about the same guys. So spring training is an opportunity to get to know these younger guys a little bit and see the future of baseball and these teams in the MLB. So talking about the future for baseball, I mean, we have some new rules coming into effect. We got the pitch clock as well. So AAA, Aiden, now nothing is official yet. I believe the AAA strike zone is, though. They are going to have a robot strike zone. So what are your thoughts about, and we've seen this a few times, just kind of play around with it, but what are your thoughts on a robot strike zone with a computerized technological strike zone compared to having an umpire back there or really anywhere?
Now, as good as it may sound and can be, every pitch is perfect, it won't mess up. But I think it just takes a lot of the human aspect out of the game. A lot of the fans will like and enjoy to see that rivalry, and they like they like the riots, not the riots, but the brawls, and when the coach yells at the umpire. I think it 100% takes, like I said before, a huge chunk of the human aspect out of the game. And personally, I am not for the automatic strike zone, but if it's what works in the MLB, you can't argue it.
So we have there are going to be 3 official rule changes as of announced today. Have been thoroughly tested and refined for years in the minor leagues. Each of these rules have been tested approximately 8,000 minor league games dating back to last season, which is equivalent to 3.5 complete major league seasons. So here are the rules. You ready? We got the pitch timer, which is going to, in an effort to create, and I'm taking this right from MLB.com. So this is being quoted from MLB.com itself. In an effort to create a quicker pace of play, there will be a 30-second timer between batters. Between pitches, there will be a 15-second timer with the base empty and a 20-second timer with base runners on. At least check the pitch timer had reduced the average time of game in minor league baseball about 26 minutes. This rule includes limits on throws to bases, has also increased stolen base attempts, which this rule in place in the minors this season. Steal attempts per game have increased from 2.23 in 2019 at a 68% success rate to 2.83 in 2022 at a 77% success rate. So now we're going to get to the other two rules, but we're going to break this one down a little bit more, Aiden. For this kind of rule, and if you're a pitcher and you look up and you see the clock, are you going to, I don't know, I would say maybe rush it a little bit? Obviously, you're got to get the pitch off in time, but are you rushing? Are you focused on the batter? Are you focused on what pitch you're going to throw? Or are you focused on the clock that's ticking down right in front of you?
Oh, 100%. If I was on the mound, I would. It would definitely add some pressure on me. It would add some stress. You're having a rough inning. It would add on to that rough inning because you don't have that time to be calm and cool down and relax. Maybe if you're fatigued, you'll feel the pressure, especially in New York. You know how rough the fans are. If somebody gets into a slump, it's just going to keep adding on.
Yeah, so now with that rule being in effect, you have another thing to it, and you have the defensive shifts, which a lot of players were frustrated with. Now, we're not going to get too much into this one either. We got the bigger bases, which has traditionally have been 15-inch squares, will instead now be 18 inches. Home plate's going to stay the same, so you're giving a little more room for the base runners, I guess you could say. So really the biggest change, I think, in the rules for this season is going to be the pitch timer, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see how these players react and what else is going to happen with these new rules. So we're going to take our first break here on M&A Sports Talk. Coming up next, the NFL playoffs and the predictions for NFC and the AFC championship game this Sunday. All right, so back here at M&A Sports Talk, I'm Matthew Kaufman. Once again, that's Aiden Roman. And Aiden, we've had a lot going on in the last couple of hours with the coaching changes around the NFL. Frank Wright to the Carolina Panthers. So a lot of things going on, and Frank Wright over there. Patrick Mahomes looks to be okay, he says. So Geno Smith possibly going to come back to the to the Seattle Seahawks. Dan Quinn to remain with the Cowboys as the defensive coordinator. So a lot of interesting things going on. We're going to start with the first game of the divisional series, the divisional round of the playoffs. That was the Jags and the Chiefs. Now, something interesting, and we've seen this a few times, Aiden. Chad Henne came into the game. Holmes went to the locker room with an injury, came out for the second half, played a great second half. And this is just Jaguar team that a lot of people thought, hey, maybe they can beat Kansas City. But the late interception by Trevor Lawrence on that really nice grab at the end of the game secured it. So if you're Jacksonville thinking ahead to next season, looking into the future of next season, I mean, you got to think you started the season, I believe, 3-7. I'll double check that. But this was a team that really, really struggled in the beginning of the season and made it past the Jaguars in the playoffs. They wound up winning the AFC South for the first time in a long time. So, it really was. This team started at, let's see, let's see. So they lost to the Commanders. They beat the Colts. They beat the Jaguars. They lost to Philly. They lost to Houston. They lost to the Colts, to the Giants, to the Broncos. Then they beat the Raiders. Then they lost to Kansas City again. Beat the Ravens in a close 1-point game. Got absolutely blown out by Detroit, 40-14. And then everything else turned around for Jacksonville there. So it was a little bit of a rougher stretch for the Jaguars. But just Doug Peterson up for Coach of the Year as well, with a lot of well-deserved coaches. Kevin O'Connell up for that as well. Brian Daboll, coach of the Giants, up for that. So this is a Jaguar team, Aiden, that really turned themselves around after what we saw last year.
Now, I see that you mentioned Mahomes coming back after the second quarter, second half. Sorry, and I do have an update on that. Patrick Mahomes, and his high grade ankle injury. He is on track to start the AFC Championship game. He did a full practice today, so the coaches say everything looks good. Just one bad tackle, and he could maybe not come back after the half like he did against the Jaguars. Like you said, an amazing game played by both sides, but like we both predicted in our brackets, we did both have Jacksonville falling short to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, it's not a knock to them. They did play an amazing game, almost back and forth. Kansas City jumped out to a excuse me. Kansas City fell to a down by 3, and at the end of the second quarter, they did end up scoring 10 to take the lead before half, and the rest is history right there. They kind of kept the lead the rest of the game. What a game by Mahomes! What a game by Chad Henne. I know you brought him up. I don't think anybody predicted him to drive down the field the way he did and ended up helping the team score. But the Chiefs, all around, the Chiefs are just a really good team, and I can see them winning the next game against Cincinnati and advancing to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Chad Henne thing. We've seen this before now. We saw Chad Henne do that against the Cleveland Browns a few years ago to get the Chiefs back to the AFC Championship game. 5th straight season in the AFC Championship game for Kansas City. Now we go to the game after that, and that was the Giants and the Eagles. A lot of people, even including us, both had the Giants actually upsetting the Philadelphia Eagles, but Philadelphia didn't take that, Aiden, a blowout win against the Giants, and their foot was on the gas the entire night.
You said it, Matt. Their foot was on the gas the entire night. Opened up the game. First quarter, 14 quick points, holding the Giants to 0. Second quarter, almost the same thing, 14, and the Giants got held to 0 again. The Giants did end up scoring 7 in the third quarter, but no match for the Eagles 10 to finish it off in the fourth quarter, leading 38-7. What an unfortunate loss for the men in blue. Like we just said, we both did have the Giants winning, but the Eagles did not take that lightly. A lot of people had the Giants upsetting the Eagles. Now, the quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, 15 for 27. Jalen Hurts, 16 for 24. But the difference there is Daniel Jones had just 1 interception and didn't throw any touchdowns, while Jalen Hurts has 2 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Yeah, and the turnover battle, obviously, a key to every game. I mean, you turn the ball over once, it could change the whole aspect of the game just with that. But this is an Eagles team, that came in off a bye week, so-called a bye week, getting the first round of the playoffs off. They came in to week 18 with a banged-up Jalen Hurts, beat the Giants by 8. You had no Hurts 2 weeks before that. You lost to Dallas. It was just going back and forth. So this is a team for Philadelphia that a lot of people really thought maybe they don't look as good as they did during the regular season. But at the same time, it's a Eagles team, it's a Giant team that they beat without an offense, with a struggled offensive line. You saw that game. I mean, they were getting blitzed left and right. There was really no receivers. I mean, obviously, yes, you had Richie James, you had Hodgins, Slayton, Galladay, who really wasn't on the field as much either. So Jones had no time to throw the football, and the Giants, it seemed, defensively could not get to Jalen Hurts. I mean, it was just all out. It was brutal to watch for Giants fans on Saturday. And now what do you do in the offseason? But we'll get to that in later episodes down the road when we get closer to the NFL draft. Who do you draft? That's all going to be later on. So now if you're Philadelphia, you got another home game. You host the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia. We'll get to the 49ers in just a moment. First, we talk Bengals and the Bills. Now, this was a game that really surprised a lot of people. Everyone thought, hey, maybe Buffalo's going to win. Buffalo's going to win this game. They're doing it for DeMar. They're ready to go. They're pumped up. DeMar came into the locker room, talked to the guys before the game. He was up at the top of the stadium in the suites, so Buffalo was pumped, and they just got outplayed by Cincinnati.
It's almost like the Giants and Eagles game. Now, I'm not going to say Buffalo Bills did get blown out, but Joe Burrow, 242 passing yards. Josh Allen, 264 passing yards, but no touchdowns and an interception, just like Daniel Jones. And Joe Burrow, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, which, as you can see, they started off the game hot, 14-0 in the first quarter, followed up by 3 in the second quarter, with the Bills outscoring them in the second by 7. Then you have the rest of the game, that last 2 quarters, they end up scoring 10. The Buffalo Bills scored 3, and the Bengals end up taking the W. Now, I have a question for you. For the Bengals going into Cincinnati for the AFC, do you think they have a chance against the Chiefs, being 3-0 against them so far?
Absolutely, and we'll get to more of the predictions in a minute. But Aiden, you said it, 3-0 against Kansas City. I like my odds if I'm the Bengals. So, definitely, I definitely have a feeling Kansas City has in their favor. Obviously, of course, playing in Kansas City though, so Kansas City definitely has the upper hand in this one, home field wise. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. So now the final game of the division playoffs, that was the 49ers hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Another upsetting ending for the Cowboys in a divisional playoff game, but another multiple interception game thrown by Dak Prescott. So for Dallas, you look at what Dallas has done in recent years. They've made the playoffs. They've won the division title a couple of times, but they haven't gotten past the divisional round. Now, let's just talk about the last play of the game. What the heck are you doing? I mean, you have Ezekiel Elliott as your center. Obviously, you had 4. It looked like it was 4 or 5 receivers lined up to the left of Prescott, 2 receivers to the right. So, what was going on in that situation that you put Zeke at center? He got absolutely ran over. I believe it was Greenlaw who absolutely decked him, and you get Turpin, who made the catch, but then gets slammed to the ground. So, really, just I don't know what Mike McCarthy was thinking on calling that play, even if it was the last resort. But just mental mistakes, the penalties, I believe it was 7 penalties in the fourth quarter that they had, not in the fourth quarter alone, but 7 total penalties throughout the game. So it was just stabbing themselves in the foot, it seemed like, for Dallas. But then you look at the 49ers side of things, they played a great game as well. Now you got to go into Philadelphia. You got to beat the Eagles on the road to head back to the Super Bowl. So I definitely think it's going to be interesting, Aiden. And this is a 49er team that they're really riding Mr. Irrelevant right now, Brock Purdy.
Now, a little bit more on Dak Prescott. With him missing 5 games of the regular season, Cooper Rush taking over that starter spot for a little bit. He has thrown 15 interceptions. I'm pretty sure that's the most in the NFL, if not tied for the
Indeed.
most. Now I have a question. Is Dak Prescott still the answer for the Dallas Cowboys?
It's up in the air at this point. I mean, he's been here now. He's been to the playoffs multiple times. He just has not been able to get the big wins. Yes, he won the wild card game last week, 2 weekends ago now, but it just seems like you can't win a divisional playoff game. I mean, you got to be able to win. You lose to the 49ers last year in the wild card round. Who knows what happened there? That was a crazy ending also. So, but you have to be able to win the big games. You have a really good regular season, but then the struggles hit when you get to the playoffs. It can't be that way. You have to have a good regular season and an even better postseason for Dallas. So, I do think Dak Prescott is the answer. I think if he could take the turnovers and slim them down a little bit, I absolutely think that Dak Prescott stays in Dallas, but is it a coaching issue? Is it Prescott? Is it the offensive line? so many different questions, and it really relies on what happens during the offseason. What are you going to proceed in the offseason? So, that's all up in the air. Now, we're going to get our predictions for the NFC and AFC championship game. We're going to start with the NFC championship game. That's going to be the first game on Saturday on Fox. So, Aiden, we got the 49ers and the Eagles. Who do you got? And what's your
I'm going to stay strong. I'm going to say my prediction was if the New York Giants did get knocked out, the 49ers will go all the way. I think the 49ers beat Philadelphia in Philly. I think it's going to be a close score, a close win for them, really. I'm going 30-27.
All right. So I'm going to go, I do believe 49ers defense I'm going to say that the 49er defense comes up with a big defensive play in the final 5 minutes of the game. This game is tied at 27 going into this final. Oh, sorry. The game is tied at 21 going into the final 49ers possession. Robbie Gould kicks a game-winning field goal. 49ers win it 24-21 and head to Super Bowl 57 in Arizona. That's my prediction. Now to the AFC side of things, Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. What do you got, Aiden?
Now, even though Cincinnati is 3-0 against the Kansas City Chiefs in the last three face-offs, I think the Chiefs do put their foot down and end up advancing to the Super Bowl against the 49ers. I think it will be a blowout win. I think the Chiefs will score 2 touchdowns in the first and second quarter. I think it'll go to. Let me think. At least I think like a couple years ago they ran out of fireworks. I'm shooting for 42-17.
All right, so you're going blowout material there for Kansas City and Cincinnati. I want to say it's going to be a little closer than that. I'm going to say it's going to be 17. Maybe no. We're going to go 24-17. I'm going to say that Cincinnati, Aiden, is going to win that game by a touchdown. This Bengal defense, like they have, it seems like all year, comes up with a big defensive play at the end of the game, and that's how the Bengals are going to advance to the Super Bowl. Now, without predictions and everything like that, Aiden, what is your dream Super Bowl matchup for this season? You got Eagles, 49ers, Bengals, and the Chiefs. Who are the 2 teams that you want to see play each other in the Super Bowl?
I would 100% would love to see the San Francisco. And although I did say Kansas City, I like to see San Fran and Cincinnati. I would enjoy to see that Super Bowl. I think it'd be an amazing defensive Super Bowl. Maybe some high scoring games. I would love to see it.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. I'm going to say I'm definitely going to agree with the fact that I want to see Cincinnati and the 49ers, just because obviously, Cincinnati fell short to the Rams last year. 49ers fell short to Kansas City a few years ago back in Miami. So I definitely would like to see both of those 2 teams back in a Super Bowl. And I think that'd be a great Super Bowl to watch. But we're going to find out on Sunday who winds up going to the Super Bowl, and we got those talks later on as well. Now, this is a team, or these are 4 teams, Aiden, that were all in the playoffs last year. Eagles lost to Tampa Bay. Cincinnati wound up going to the Super Bowl. 49ers wound up getting knocked out by the Rams in the NFC Championship game. And, the Chiefs obviously got beat by the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC Championship game. So it's really redemption for a few of these teams. Eagles looking for redemption. Bengals looking to head back to a Super Bowl, get their redemption. Same with the 49ers after being knocked out in the championship game last year, trying to avoid making it 2 years in a row, being knocked out. So what is the mindset, and what do you tell your players? If you're the head coach of these 4 teams, what are you telling your players going into this championship series or this championship Sunday?
Oh, 100%. If I'm not the favorite to win, just like 49ers, I know a lot of people are rooting for the Eagles. They think it's going to be an easy win. But if I'm the 49ers coach, I'm telling them we got to play our best defense. The Eagles don't mess around. As you can see, the Eagles really put their foot down against the New York Giants. But if I'm the 49ers coach, I'm saying we have to play our best defense. There will be no break this week. I wouldn't give them a break. They would be playing the whole entire week, practicing to beat this amazing, talented Eagles team. If you give the quarterback too much space, he will run. Obviously, proven against the Giants. If you give the pocket, if you give a nice pocket, they'll run. Miles Sanders, amazing, and Jalen Hurts can throw the deep ball.
Yeah, so you look at what Philadelphia has done, and Aiden, you just mentioned it with the run game. This is one of the better running offenses in the NFL, especially with Jalen Hurts and, of course, Miles Sanders. But then you got the receiving core. I mean, that thing is stacked. I mean, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, all these guys. So Dallas Goedert, who came up big last week with a touchdown against the Giants as well. So this is a team that could do it all. But you're playing a 49er defense that was one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the NFL this past season. So during the regular season. So odds on favorite, the offense for Philadelphia being the home team, but we're going to see who wins that one this Sunday at 3:00. Get ready for kickoff on Fox. We got more to talk about with the New York Knicks. Basketball is coming up right after this on M&A Sports Talk. So back here on M&A Sports Talk, I'm Matthew Kaufman. That is Aiden Roman. Aiden, we've talked some Yankees getting ready for spring training, some other baseball as well. NFC and AFC championship game coming up. We got our predictions in there as well. Now we're going to transition to the NBA side of things, the basketball side, and that is the New York Knicks. Aiden, this has been a Knicks team that has struggled in recent games, and it looks to continue to struggle, but picking up a 2-point win on Tuesday against the Cavs.
Now, what a great game against the Cavs. Julius Randle really stepped up. You got some Jalen Brunson, but the Knicks were up. It was a back and forth game coming towards the end. I thought the Knicks had it, and I'm glad we did. But we're as the weeks go on, we are starting to drop in the standings. I know. I think in episode 1 when we talked about this, the Knicks were in, or if not in, tied for the 5th seed, and now we have dropped down to the 7th seed. With the win tonight, we could tie the Miami Heat in the 6th seed and try to reach our way back up to the 5th spot, if not taking the Nets spot in 4th. But we just got to get on the winning streak. We see how, when we're on the winning streak, you see how good we are. We've won 8 in a row this year, just unstoppable. When everything's clicking, our defense is amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at for points, and I'm looking here on ESPN, highest points and the high in rebounds for each game. You see a constant name in there. That's Julius Randle, Aiden, and let me tell you, he has been on a tear, especially in the rebound game. I mean, he's got rebounds leading 13 against the Cavs. He had 19 against Toronto, 15, 15, 15 against Washington, Toronto, and Detroit just a couple of days ago. I mean, he has been the rebound king, it seems like. And for points, he had 36 points last night, 32 points on Friday the 20th against the Atlanta Hawks. He had 42 on Sunday the 15th against Detroit, against the Pistons. So he is really stepping up this season. And, right now with this Knicks team, it's a team that really needs to get going. And, for the Knicks, you got the schedule coming up that you kind of want. You want, but at the same time, you really don't, because you got Boston tonight in Boston, that game getting ready to be tipped off. Then you got Brooklyn as well, and Brooklyn, who you have on Saturday, and then the 31st, the following Tuesday, at home, you have the Lakers. So the next 3 games for Brooklyn are some big ones, especially Boston and Brooklyn. So what do you see New York doing in those games? And can Julius Randle continue to keep this team on his back and carry their weight, and hopefully a playoff game ahead for the Knicks?
Now, Julius Randle, it's almost like every single week that we do this podcast, we look at the last 7 days of the stats, it's just 30 every single week. He's at the last 7 days, 30 points, 13.7 rebounds. I know you said he's been a rebound monster, and he really has. But, I'm going to speak, before I speak about the Brooklyn game, I will talk about the game tonight against Boston. I think, it's a little, not everybody will expect it, but I'm going to say if the Knicks coach ends up putting in Evan Fournier, I know he hasn't been hot this year. He's really been a bench player. He hasn't really got time, sits down a lot. But against Boston, I'm going to read you his last 11 games. 35 points, 33 points, 39, 36, 36, 34, 35, 44, 43, 42. And this year, he only scored 11 against them. But I think if you put Evan Fournier out there, he knows how this Boston defense is. He knows how to beat it, and he can clearly help you win the ballgame.
Yeah, and what are your players to watch coming into this game against Boston today?
If Evan Fournier does not get put in, I would say Emmanuel Quickly. He'll be a great young star to watch. Against the Boston defense, we know how to make the three ball against them a lot. Just looking at Evan Fournier, but I think Emmanuel Quickly we're going to open a lot tonight, and he'll have 25 plus on, I would say, like roughly 60% shooting, maybe.
Yeah, and for this Knicks team, I mean, obviously, it's been really a struggle these last few games, these last recent weeks. I mean, a loss, coming off 4 straight losses before they get a win against the Cavs, losing to Toronto in overtime, losing to Washington, losing to Atlanta, then losing to Toronto again. Finally pick up a win against Cleveland on Tuesday. Now you got your next 3, which we talked about. So definitely going to be interesting to see if the Knicks can kind of turn things around, go on a winning streak. We're going to say, we'll talk about the next 5 games. So Boston, Brooklyn, LA. Then you got Miami at home. You got the Clippers at home. And you got the 76ers on February the 5th at home before you go on a road trip to Orlando and Philadelphia. So definitely an opportunity with 4 consecutive home games after they finish this road trip to Boston and Brooklyn. So that's going to be all the time we have today on M&A Sports Talk. I'm Matthew Kaufman. That's Aiden Roman saying so long of episode 4 of M&A Sports Talk.